different. Do you understand? Over a long period of time, it hasn't taken any actions. So one would even think that, okay, whatever US is doing is right, because if it's not being sanctioned or being reprimanded by the United Nations, then there is no fault whatsoever with it. Do you understand?
Do you
So
have
it
something to
gives
say
them the
about what he's saying?
effrontery and the opportunity to be able to carry out what they are doing. So today, I wouldn't blame Donald Trump and the United Nations for carrying out the actions that they are carrying out, if they believe that those actions are necessary to protect their own interest as a nation.
Okay.
Do you understand? Yes.
Do you have something to say about it?
Allow me to respond to Richard's submission. I would agree with Richard to some extent that the United Nations as a body, to some extent, has been dormant when it comes to the enforcement of international law. Okay, but then we must hasten to point out that the issue beforehand is the fact that what Donald Trump has done is a violation of international law. And per Article 2.4 of the UN Charter, it is expressed that no state shall use force or threat of use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of another state. And this is a clear violation. And with respect to your assertion, it's true because the US is a superpower, right? It's one of the members of the Security Council, and so therefore it is good to say, or it is prudent to say that by virtue of that power, it can do whatever it wants, and then there wouldn't be any sanction attached to it.
Well, that's your assertion. That's your assertion, right? That it's a violation whatsoever under international law. I mean, there are several other instances. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, right?
That one is actually different.
What has the UN done? UN is supposed to be like the body or the internationally recognized body that ensures that these things are not happening or occurring. Don't
you think that the actions of US and then Ukraine, their own is quite different from what Trump has done? Because US, the Russia and then the Ukraine, what I know is that it is a whole country that had actually invaded another country. They are fighting.
Still an invasion. It's still an invasion.
But this one.
Do you understand?
Okay, so let me come in.
Okay.
When Graham was trying to justify the action of Donald Trump, he made mention of interest. I want to know what that it is right in their conscience. If they can protect right, what kind of right? Is it US right? Is it the citizens or the Venezuela? I don't know.
So I think in responding to your question or your assertion, it is a principle under international law that not only does a state have power to invade another state sovereignty.
And so you want to tell me that the state has power to invade another state?
Yes.
Under international law?
Yes, when it comes to armed conflict or when it comes to use of force against that particular state sovereignty or territorial integrity. Okay. So in matters of that nature, international law has actually given that state, a state that has been under attack, to also respond in kind by using force against the state that has threatened or used force against the political independence or territorial sovereignty of that particular state under Article 51 of the UN Charter. Also, I think when it comes to US invasion into Venezuela, it also has to do with the fact that Venezuelan citizen also has a public outcry relating to how their government was treating them in their particular.
Are you actually sure? Because
yes, we saw videos and we saw videos on the internet where citizens of Venezuela were celebrating the capture of their president. So this points out to the fact that they were happy that US has actually done something great for their country.
No, you guys, you can.
So let's make it this way. We all here admit that Maduro is a dictator. It is a known fact, right? But it does not guarantee him the power. It doesn't give him that authority to go and then arrest. And then I'm coming.
Okay.
And then the videos that he said, I've seen videos, footage, and other things. And we have also seen videos whereby the first day he was being arrested in the court, people were crying, protesting for his release. That should tell you that there were no other interests that Donald Trump wanted to protect or US wanted to protect. You can even look at it. The subsequent action of the arrest or what we call kidnapping.
You
To
guys
tell
are
you
tagging
that
it as
yes, yes. So
kidnapping.
it's a kidnapping. To tell you that they had the interest. US had an interest. They want to exploit the oil of Venezuela. That is all. This is
So that is the only issue.
In response to uh, Prosper's submission, in light of the revelation that U.S. operation whatsoever was with the intention of taking control of Venezuela's oil reserves or whatever, I personally do not agree with that. Now, when you even look at the history of Venezuela in question, all right, when you look at the history of Venezuela in question, the United States, the United States, which we are all talking about right now, played an integral part, played an integral part after the independence of Venezuela in order to ensure that there is a democratic regime in the country. Because after Venezuela got independence, there were several overthrows of government by militaries and militias and all of that. And the the United States had to step in order to what? Restore order and balance in that country. So when you look at the history of Venezuela itself, you know very well that the United States had played a very important part in
And so
ensuring that
are you calling the
the
actions
rule
of
of
Trump
law
as
and
important?
democracy
No, are
is
you calling
instituted in that country. So when Prosper says that the intentions of the US is to take control, even over time, Exxon, I don't know whether you know Exxon Corporation, formerly
yeah,
known as Standard Oil,
yeah.
actually had like 80% of profits when it comes to Venezuelan oil. But then during the time that I think in 2013 or so, when um, Hugo Chavez, one of the presidents of the Venezuela, decided to nationalize the oil and the profits and all of that, you could realize that Venezuela was actually producing close to 3 billion barrels of oil annually. However, when the government came into power and all of that, that reserve or whatever profit that Venezuela was making reduced drastically from 3 billion to what, 700 million. And this was all due to what? Mismanagement, corruption on the part of the leaders
And so
who were in charge of these
calling the
particular
actions of
resources.
Trump as what a protection of human rights? I don't even know how to
It's
call
not
it.
protection of human rights. I would say it's more or less like something that they've already done before. An act that is to bring balance and order into a country
And this
that
is
is
how they choose to bring balance by
destabilized.
Okay, so Emmanuel,
okay.
let me just need to respond to
Okay.
Richard.
Yeah, you can.
The fact that a wrong has been done twice does not mean it is right. Right. The fact that U.S. has interfered with Venezuelan government or their way of governing themselves does not mean it is right under international law. And we must not move away from the point. Right. The point is that Trump's actions, our use of force, are in violation of international law. Okay. And the other issue that we are supposed to discuss here today is whether the U.S. court has the jurisdiction to
Jurisdiction
try
to try.
Maduro. And it is our fervent position that the United States court does not have jurisdiction to try President Maduro because of what? The old age established international law principle of what? Sovereign immunity. Right? So it has been established under international law that the head of state of another state cannot be subject to the jurisdiction or the domestic jurisdiction of another state.
Another state.
And this is based on the principle of equality of all states, which is what? Governed by Article 2.2 of the United Nations Charter. And so, under no circumstance can the head of state of another state be subject to the domestic jurisdiction of another state.
But do you guys think that President Maduro can be tried in the US?
Before they respond to that, I want to actually respond to what Graham said earlier. It is a known fact that any time the US intervene in any country, it's always led to economic hardship.
An evidence,
We
it's
can
something you
give
can see.
instances. US, for instance, it is known as a violation of international law. They don't respect international law. As he has stated, they have violated Article 2.4. But to give you instances whereby the United States has intervened in other countries, and then that have led to our economic asset afterward. We can take Libya for instance. Libya was
It's
one
actually
of
led to the killing of their president
Yes,
by them.
which later led to
in
a whole lot
2011.
of.
We can take
And now,
Iraq.
Libya is one of the poorest countries in
You
Africa.
see,
You know, and this is the thing. US is the only country to have ever used atomic missiles. They are the only country. So when you look at it, let's not shy away
Banker,
by admitting to the fact that what they're doing is actually wrong.
it's normal.
And then we shouldn't just keep saying that they are trying to protect interest. Interest. Whose interest?
maybe the citizens interest, because he said that when the president was actually arrested, some of the people were happy. So it means that there are people in the country who are actually in support of the act of Trump.
Let me give you instances.
And so they are protecting those people their
The
rights.
fact that they are happy does not mean that it is justified under international
Yes.
law.
Okay, but are we not talking about the people who serve in the country?
Okay, let me give you instances. We can take Uganda for instance. The president has been there for 37 years. He is a dictator. Why is it that the US have not arrested and kidnapped the president?
Maybe they don't want to talk about Africa.
Why?
No,
Because
see, because
if they are talking about protection of democracy, I can give you Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, is a dictator. Why is that US have not intervened?
Maybe they just want to.
This should tell you that any country that the United States of America intervene, they have personal peculiar interest.
To that.
And I have given you instances. See, 3 days ago,
I think I think what my colleague is asserting is trying to I think it's trying to throw that into our eyes, in the sense that U.S. invasion into Venezuela is not basically about personal interest. Considering the charges against President Maduro, one of the charges was narco terrorism charge, and
That's what.
I think it was in relation to trafficking of drugs, or illegal trafficking of drugs into US.
which is an allegation.
So also, when you look at I think for the past couple of months, US have strike Venezuelan sea vessel at the sea, alleged to have been carrying drugs into US.
Okay.
This has been a warning to Venezuela
So
on
they've
several
warned
occasions.
them on several occasions.
So considering all these circumstances, I think the arrest of President Maduro
And do you think that was a rights forum? In as much as do you think that was a rights forum to do it?
Yes. Also, I think you allow me to learn on this particular distinct issue. So the arrest of President Maduro was also on the allegation that he facilitated the illegal trafficking of drugs into US. So he being the leader of Venezuela, and there have been several warnings in relation to Venezuela trafficking drugs into US, and he has done nothing about it, means he
is a part of
indirectly abet and facilitate the illegal trafficking of drugs.
That's what they are saying.
See, my learned colleague, we are forgetting to remind ourselves that as law students, there's this principle that we know under international law and even in our domestic law, presumption of innocence, right? And which is recognized under the ICCPR. And so if you are saying that the mere allegations that Maduro is facilitating the should I say
the drug trafficking,
the transfer of drug trafficking and all that, there's no legal basis.
Yes,
there's
yes,
no legal
yes,
basis for Trump to
but he made mention of something that they actually arrested or seized some of the sea vessels from Venezuela.
Yes,
that is quite an evidence. We can actually put that into circumstantial evidence if I'm right. That if you actually capture a sea vessel from another country or another state into your state, which you have actually come to your notice that there are drugs in it. So these are some of the evidence.
Yes, and this is not even on.
These facts were not made known.
Okay, let me come in.
Yes,
but if it wasn't made known, but he's saying it here.
Yes, it's known because there are several videos on the internet where US has tried this.
But then he's saying it.
There are several videos on the internet. I think you failed to also.
And he's telling you that you failed to do it.
Let me respond to you.
It's not verified facts.
It is a verified fact from a reliable source.
Okay, please. Let me respond to him. He made mention that there had been several allegation level against the president of Maduro and so on and so forth, does that even guarantee the arrest? No. Come in, let me give you something.
Okay.
If your country prohibits the usage of, let me see, drugs, does that mean every country have the same laws that prohibit? And then
but you know, I think you don't have to forget. No, you don't need to. You need not to forget that this sea vessel we are talking about, as Jonathan said, right, was transferred from Venezuela into United States.
Yes.
And so I think.
I want to know that.
So is he saying that the Venezuelan vessel was arrested by the United States?
That is what he said. He said
they strike it by missile. It is a known thing. It is in the internet.
This is even use of force under international law.
I see.
Right? And it is important to always note that before a state, okay, can resort to the use of force under international law, okay, there Article 2.3 of the United Nations Charter, there are several means, mediation, arbitration, before it can resort to the use of force.
I agree to that fact. However, you have to also avert your mind to the fact that
our time
you have to also avert your mind to the fact that
really on our
Venezuelan citizens trafficking drugs into US without their permission or without their consent can also amount to invasion into territorial integrity and sovereignty.
We have liability.
So if you avert your mind,
and then we have liability of individuals.
yes.
And so if there are individuals who are trafficking drugs into the United States, you can arrest those individuals, but not the head of state.
So now I have a question, right? For me, I even have a question. My question is such that okay.
I want to know that export of certain goods is not against or not a justifiable ground for any state to use self-defense. And US
you see that I just wanted to ask him one question. That's right. I want to ask you one question.
Yes.
There's a question that I don't understand. I was trying to link it up with the current situation.